Welcome in. It is way too early to be talking about the 2027 NFL Draft. We all know it. The 2026 season has not started. Not a single preseason snap has been played. Arch Manning has not thrown a pass that counts. C.J. Carr has not taken his first snap under center for Notre Dame. And yet here we are, because the Myles Garrett trade to the Los Angeles Rams on June 1st reshuffled the entire projected draft order for next year in ways that every front office in this league is already gaming out behind closed doors. The Rams gave up a 2027 first-round pick to get the best defensive player in football. That pick is now in Cleveland's hands. The Browns suddenly have 2 first-round picks next year and 11 total selections in 2027. The entire top of the board shifted. And when you start understanding where the Bills are likely to pick in that 2027 draft and what kind of class is shaping up at the positions that matter most to this franchise, the conversation becomes genuinely relevant to everything Buffalo is trying to build right now. So let's get into it. First round. Position by position, Bills focus throughout. Before we get to where Buffalo sits in all of this, let's establish the macro picture because context is everything in a way too early mock draft conversation. The order is being built on inverse Super Bowl odds, which means the teams most likely to win the championship next year are picking last, and the teams most likely to be rebuilding are picking first. The Arizona Cardinals sit at the top of this board, and the pick being made there is Arch Manning, the Texas quarterback who has the pedigree, the physical tools, and the family name to be the number 1 overall pick in 2027 if he can clean up the inconsistencies from his first couple of seasons as a college starter. Manning going first to Arizona is the early consensus. Whether a full season of play changes, that is what makes the next 8 months of football relevant to this conversation. The best player in this entire class right now, regardless of position and regardless of draft order, is Jeremiah Smith out of Ohio State. The wide receiver who announced himself to the college football world last season as one of the most complete receiver prospects in recent memory. If any team picking in the top 4 does not need a quarterback, the bidding war for the right to move up and take Jeremiah Smith is going to be extraordinary. The Dolphins sit at 3 in this projection, and if Miami is not going quarterback, they take Smith, and it is the obvious correct move. Now let's talk about the Bills and where they actually land in this picture, because that is the number that matters most to this fan base. Buffalo is projected to be picking somewhere in the mid to late 20s in the first round, assuming the team performs the way most of the league expects with Josh Allen healthy and the new offense under Joe Brady generating results. That is a good problem to have. You do not want to be picking in the top 10 in the 2027 NFL Draft because that means your season went catastrophically wrong. The Bills' goal in 2026 is a Super Bowl run. If everything goes according to plan, they are picking 25th or later. And in a class this deep at multiple premium positions, a late first-round pick can still be an excellent value if the front office does its homework. So what does Buffalo actually need to be targeting in this draft class? Let's go position by position through the lens of what the Bills roster is going to look like heading into 2027. Start with the offensive line, because this is where the conversation gets most urgent from a Bills perspective. The Bills have invested in DJ Moore this offseason to give Josh Allen a credible number 1 receiver. They have Josh Oliver and Khalil Shakir and Dawson Knox providing complementary weapons. But the offensive protection situation, particularly at tackle, is something this team needs to monitor very carefully as the 2026 season develops. Jordan Seaton out of Colorado is the name that every draft analyst is circling right now as the potential top tackle in this entire class. He was considered talented enough to be a first-round pick had he declared for 2026, and instead, he is returning to college for another season of development. By next spring, Seton could easily be a top 10 prospect regardless of position. If he is available when Buffalo picks, you do not let him slide. Trevor Gooseby out of Texas is another name worth tracking as a versatile tackle who can work at both left and right in the NFL. The Bills need to protect Josh Allen for as long as Josh Allen is playing football, and offensive line depth is never a position you stop investing in when the franchise quarterback is your entire offense. Now let's talk about the defensive line, because the Myles Garrett trade should be a wake-up call that resonates specifically for Bills fans in a way it does not for fan bases around the rest of the league. The Bills showed interest in Garrett. The conversations happened. The result was that the Rams got him and the Bills did not, partially because Buffalo did not have a Jared Verse-level asset to put in a trade package. Greg Rousseau is a promising young pass rusher developing in this defense. He is not a two-time Pro Bowl edge rusher who changes the calculus of a negotiation. And that gap between what the Bills have at edge rusher and what the championship contending teams are willing to put on the field in the postseason is something Brandon Beane and this front office need to address either through free agency before 2027 or through the draft class itself. Dylan Stewart out of South Carolina is the name at the top of this defensive class right now, and the early buzz on him is genuinely exciting. Twitched up, explosive, arguably the best defensive player in this entire class with a motor that does not turn off. If Stewart is available when the Bills pick, you have a very serious conversation about taking him regardless of what the receiver depth chart looks like or what the offensive line situation is. You build championship defenses through the draft at premium positions, and Stewart fits that profile exactly. The Bills under Jim Leonhard are building towards something real defensively. Adding a prospect of Stewart's caliber to that structure could be the piece that pushes this unit from good to genuinely elite. Also worth watching on the defensive side is David Stone out of Oklahoma, an interior defensive tackle with top-end pass rush ability who fills a similar role to what Quinnen Williams provided for the Jets before he was traded away. The Bills' defensive interior is solid but not spectacular, and adding a disruptive 3 technique behind the starters would give Leonhard more flexibility with his defensive packages and more options for how he deploys pressure from the inside out. Stone is a name to track all season. At corner, Kelly Jones out of Mississippi State is drawing early attention as a long, press-man-capable boundary corner with the length and athleticism that NFL defenses covet at the outside spot. The Bills have Christian Benford locked in as their CB1 and Maxwell Harrison developing as the CB2, but the depth behind those two is a legitimate question as you project forward into 2027 and beyond. A player like Jones could step into a rotational role immediately while developing into a long-term starter over his first 2 or 3 seasons in the league. The most interesting name on this entire board, from a Bills-specific standpoint, however, is a player who barely registers on the national radar right now, but who represents exactly the kind of hidden value play that championship rosters are built around. Charlie Becker, a receiver out of the Big 12, with the kind of contested catch ability and football IQ that the Bills have been lacking at the 3rd and 4th receiver spots on the depth chart for years. The comp being floated in draft circles right now is Alec Pierce, which is not a flashy comparison, but it is an accurate one. A physical, reliable boundary receiver who wins in traffic and shows up when the game is on the line. If the Bills are going to keep asking Josh Allen to operate in the postseason against elite defensive backs, they need more than one legitimate receiving threat. Becker, projected in the middle of the first round in this mock, would be a significant upgrade over what currently exists behind DJ Moore and Khalil Shakir. Now let's zoom out and address the elephant in the room that no Bills fan wants to think about, but every honest analysis of this franchise requires confronting. The 2027 draft class has multiple quarterback prospects who are drawing legitimate first-round buzz. Arch Manning is the name everyone knows. Dante Moore out of Oregon is developing into a genuine prospect. CJ Carr at Notre Dame is the one scouts have been buzzing about all spring, a player who has been asked to make plays without much help around him and has consistently delivered. Darian Mensah is another name, Drake Lindsay. The point is that 2027 is shaping up to be a legitimately deep quarterback class, and the teams at the top of this board are going to be in position to finally solve their franchise quarterback problems. Josh Allen is 29 years old. He has a contract that runs through 2028. He is right now one of the 2 or 3 best quarterbacks in football. The Bills are not drafting a quarterback in the first round of the 2027 draft, but every year that passes without a Super Bowl, every postseason exit, every offseason that requires another patch job instead of a systematic rebuild is another year closer to the moment when that conversation becomes unavoidable. The Rams traded multiple first-round picks to get Myles Garrett because Matthew Stafford is 38 years old, and their window is measured in years, not decades. The Bills' window with Josh Allen is longer than the Rams' window with Stafford, but it is not infinite. And the teams that are going to be picking Arch Manning and CJ Carr and Dante Moore at the top of the 2027 draft are going to spend the next half-decade building around those quarterbacks while the Bills are either winning with Allen or watching their window close. The urgency of 2026 is real. Win now. Go deep. Make the postseason run that this fan base has been waiting for since the 4 Super Bowl losses became the defining narrative of this franchise. Use the draft capital you have accumulated wisely. Sign the right veterans. Trust Joe Brady's offense to unlock Josh Allen the way he was unlocked in his best seasons, and build through the draft at premium positions so that when 2027 arrives, whether the Bills are picking 25th or 28th, or wherever their season takes them, they are adding genuinely elite talent to a roster that is already competitive, rather than scrambling to fill holes that should have been addressed years earlier. The 2027 draft class is coming. Arch Manning is coming, Jeremiah Smith is coming, Dylan Stewart and Jordan Seaton and Charlie Becker and CJ Carr are all coming. The Rams now own a first-round pick in that class thanks to the Myles Garrett trade. The Browns own 2 first-round picks thanks to that same trade and are going to be one of the most dangerous franchises in that draft room when April 2027 arrives. Where do the Bills want to be sitting when that day comes? The answer to that question gets decided over the next 18 weeks of football. Let's make sure the answer is somewhere in the 20s with a championship ring already on the finger. Drop your Bills 2027 draft target in the comments right now. Tell me whether you think the Bills should be prioritizing edge rusher, receiver, or offensive line when their pick comes around next April. If this breakdown had you thinking about the future while staying locked in on the present, smash that like button and subscribe, because this channel is your daily Bills coverage from now through the Super Bowl. Let's go Buffalo.